recording. There we go. Perfect. All right. So thank you for attending our first office hours here as we end the year. Just to sort of give you a little bit of an introduction as to what the purpose of these sessions are going to be today and moving forward, is this is meant to be just an open interactive space where everyone can learn, ask questions. Really, the ultimate goal is to help you get a better understanding of the CRM, how it works, how you can go in and do things on your end, and just get the most out of the platform itself. So although we do have some agenda items that we want to cover, which is going to be reviewing some of the fundamentals of how the CRM works, this is also very much an interactive session. So if you have questions that come up, feel free to ask them while we're going through different things. We're also going to have dedicated time at the end for some live Q&A, as well as if there's anything specific in your account that you want us to look at, we'll have time at the end for that as well. So we'll go ahead and kick it off. The first thing that we're going to start with, and let me start sharing my screen as well. I'm going to share a demo account that we have. So all the information in this account, we have some dummy data. So we have contacts in here. We have some automations that we've messed around with in the past. We've got some campaigns that we've started. So this is not a live account with live data, not a client of ours account. This is just a sandbox account, if you will, that we use for purposes such as this call, as well as testing different features. So the first thing that we wanted to talk about and cover and give an explanation of is how to create and send a simple email campaign. So I'll take a moment here to sort of give a little bit of definition around when we're talking about campaigns, what that means versus when we're talking about automations. So automations are going to be trigger-based workflows. So that's something like if you're an inspection company, a realtor hitting a certain inspection count milestone. Them reaching that milestone is considered a trigger, and that triggers a workflow that then has a series of steps to follow up with that agent for that purpose. So automations are trigger-based workflows. When we talk about sending an email campaign, we're talking about sending a mass email to a group of contacts. Could be only 5 people, could be 500 people, could be 5,000 people, but it's a mass email that you're putting together for the purpose of like a one-time send out to a group of contacts. So the way we're going to get that started in creating and sending that email campaign is over here in the main menu. We're just going to go on to email. We can see again here in our test account, we do have a few that we've experimented with over time. There are a lot of really cool AI features that have been getting released within the last year, and a lot of cool features that are still on the horizon that are coming out. Some of these features are involved in the campaign creation process, so that way it helps speed it up a little bit. So you're not necessarily starting from a blank slate and having to create everything from scratch. So I'll go through a couple versions of creating a campaign. I'll show the AI version first, and then I'll show the more manual version after, just so that way you can get exposure to both and decide what is going to work best for how you want to use the system. So starting with the generate campaign using AI, and whenever you see this nice little symbol here, that essentially gives you a heads up that that is like an AI enhanced feature. So tell us what the campaign is about, and it's going to create a design for us. So let's say this campaign is going to be special promotion of a service starting in December and ending before January. Now, I didn't give it much information for the purpose of this example, but it clearly says, give it what we need. And if you can be more detailed when you're giving it a description, it's going to give it a better idea of how to get it right the first time. So let's go ahead and click on Generate Campaign, and we're going to see what it comes up with here. One of the AI features as well is importing a brand kit. So if you do currently have a website, you can type in your URL, click on Import My Brand Kit, and it's actually going to go and pull your logo off of your website. It's going to pull any social media links that it can find from your website, and it's also going to pull your brand colors. And that way, every email that it's creating for you moving forward automatically has those elements applied, and those elements are already saved. So that way it's easier to create on-brand campaigns, again, without having to do anything from scratch. So we can see here, we have a few different options of what we want this layout to look like. We can toggle between different options. We can add feedback to adjust the messaging and regenerate. And we can also see that it's already pulling in some stock photos. If we scroll down here, we can see it's already started filling in some text. Again, I really didn't give it anything to go off of other than it's a special offer for December. If I had told it the specific service that we're doing a special offer for, or if there's any terms and conditions, then it would reformat this email to fit those as well. And we can see it is super simple to come in and click and edit any of these sections, as well as replace the image. So if I click on change image, you can see that we have some images that we've already uploaded into the account. We can go ahead and add a new image here as well. And we can also customize these buttons. So when they click on these buttons, where should they be taken to? And everything within a campaign that is linked like a button is trackable. So when you go to run a campaign report, you'd be able to see what were people clicking on, how many people clicked on it, which specific people clicked on which button. So everything that you see in this campaign is essentially trackable. We can also jump over into the campaign designer if we want to make some bigger updates. So let me click on this button down here, editing campaign designer. All right, and this brings us to the more traditional way of creating a mass email campaign in the CRM, which is using the email designer. You can see we have a few different options over here on the right-hand side. First, we'll take a look at structures, which are basically just different ways you can have layouts added to this email template. So in this case, if I wanted to add 3 columns, I could click and drag this structure, drop it there, and then you can see it gives me 3 columns that I can now add content to. So for example, if I wanted to have an image in the middle, I can just click on this little image icon. I could choose the image that I want to fill in. And then if I wanted text in this column to the left, I could go ahead and select that, put my text in. And over here on the right, if I wanted to do a button, I could click on that and it automatically fills in a button there too. But if I come back out to blocks, you can see there are quite a few options of other elements that you could add to this email design. And if you didn't do it the way I just showed, you can also just very easily click and drag wherever you want these elements to go. And so let's say, for example, we want to put our social profiles down here. We could click and drag that in, and then we could customize which social media profiles we want to show or which ones we want to link to based on the ones that we have set up for our company. So let's say this campaign looks good. It has all the information that I want it to include. I'm ready to go ahead and continue with the process. We'll go ahead and click on next. And now it's going to take us to a different section where we can see a few pieces of information. So one, the subject line, which because we started with the AI creation, it automatically filled in a subject line and pre-header text for us. You can customize this to be whatever you want it to be. Anytime you see a lightning bolt icon, that's a sign that you can add replacement values. So in this case, if you wanted to put the contact's first name, who's receiving this email, you could click on that lightning bolt and you could look for first name, for example, hit save. And I could even change this if I want their first name to be at the beginning of the subject line, I can paste that in. And so now, even though it's showing the replacement value here, when they actually receive the email in their inbox, that'll replace with their actual first name. So certain things with replacement values can help personalize communication a bit better and hopefully increase your open rates and your engagement rates in the communication that you're sending out. Pre-header, the easiest way to describe this is when you get an email in your inbox and before you actually click on it to open, underneath the subject line, you usually start to see some of the text from the email fill in with a ... showing that it continues. If you don't put anything in the pre-header text section, it is going to automatically pull the initial content from your email and start filling it in there. But you do have the ability to customize what shows underneath the subject line in the email inbox. So in addition to the subject line being catchy and attention grabbing, this is another opportunity for you to try and grab their attention without just letting it fill in the content of the email itself. So definitely recommend if you have something that you feel is going to help increase the open rates that is relevant to the content you're sending, you can customize that here in the pre-header text. One thing to keep in mind is we do want to be careful and avoid anything that sounds spammy, anything that is going to potentially trigger spam filters, such as overusage of certain words like free, limited time only, act now, act fast. Tons of emojis, tons of special characters, anything like that can potentially trigger spam filters. So we just want to be mindful that we want these things to be attention grabbing, but not attention grabbing to the spam filter and not letting your email get delivered. The from name and the from email, so you can customize this if you want the name to be you, but if you want the email that it's sending from to be a generic email address that you own within your domain. For example, at WolfPack, we have support@wolfpackadvising.com. So I could have this email appear as though it's coming from me, but it's being sent from the support@wolfpackadvising.com address instead of my personal address. And that also helps when people go to reply to that email. That reply will come back to the support@wolfpackadvising.com. Now, let's say I did want it to send from my Austin at WolfPack Advising, but I wanted replies to go to support at. You can also specify that here. Nothing really stops them from still manually typing in your email address in the reply field, so they could still do that and send the reply to you, but this at least auto-fills in the other email address you want that reply to go to hopefully get it sent over there. The next section we're going to see is recipient selection. So this is who should actually receive the email that you're sending out. Now, in order for a contact to be sent an email, they have to be actively subscribed to at least one list. So you can see here, we're now choosing which lists do we want this email to go out to. In this case, let's say I want it to go out to our buyer's agents. We only have 3 contacts on this list right now, and we can see here that it's going to send to all 3 because we just chose this list without further segmentation. And that's this all active subscribers. You do have the ability to get very customized with who this email should go to. And so let's say, for example, I wanted to create a new segment. And again, with the example of a buyer's agent and a home inspection company, I'm going to say this email should only go to active buyer's agents who have done more than 10 inspections with my company. Now, in this case, there's only 1 contact out of those 3 that meets that condition. So that 1 contact is who is going to receive this email. So when you're thinking about the mass emails you're sending out, yes, you can certainly send them to a wide audience if the message matches for a wide audience, but you can also get very specific if you want it to go out to only certain groups of people on your contact lists. You also have the ability to schedule this campaign out in the future. I usually recommend you do that. Even if you're ready to send it now, you can just schedule it out for like 30 minutes from now. Because if you're like me, I may click the send now button and then realize 5 minutes later, I forgot to update a link or I forgot to add specific information. And now it's too late to go back and edit once it starts sending. So I do recommend you schedule it. And again, as I mentioned, you can do, let's say we want it to go out tomorrow. We can hit set schedule and you can see that send now button just turned into a finish button. For the tracking, by default, open and read tracking is turned on, link tracking is turned on. If you have Google Analytics connected to your CRM account, you can have the tracking reflect there as well. You can turn on reply tracking. We typically don't recommend you do this, and the reason being, in order for the system to know when a reply was sent, it has to go through a proxy server that the system controls to receive that reply before it forwards on to you. That proxy server is going to look like a random string of letters and numbers, very long, so it looks computer generated. So we usually say you may run into an issue where somebody goes to reply to the email, but then they see that really long email address and think, well, I'm just replying to a system, not a person, and they may potentially decide not to reply to that email. So you're going to know when somebody replies because you're going to get the reply to your email inbox. So unless you do really have a specific reason to want to track that statistic within the CRM, we usually recommend you leave that off. You do have to have an address on file. You can add multiple addresses. So if you have multiple companies that you're working within the CRM account, let's say you have both a home inspection company and a pest control company, you could have different addresses on file for each with different company names, and you can choose which one should be attributed to that mass email campaign that you're sending out. So once we're done, everything looks good. We're going to go ahead and click on finish. We can see here, it says our campaign has been scheduled. And then it also prompts us if we want to start an automation based on this campaign. Automations are outside of what we're going to be talking about in today's office hours. But there are certainly plenty of resources that we have available in our Help Center, as well as in Active Campaigns Help Center about automated sequences, as well as this process of connecting them to a mass email campaign. So I'll go ahead and hit finish. Now, we're not going to have any reporting to view yet, but once this campaign does start sending, we would see reports fill in of open rates, click rates, unsubscribes, bounces, click to open rates, all the metrics that we want to look at to see, was this a successful email campaign? Do we need to make any adjustments for the future one that we send out, whether it's getting more specific with the list we're sending it to, whether it's trying a different subject line? all of that data will fill in. As I mentioned, we're in a test account right now, so we don't have that data here, but it would just show up right up here at the top. And you would also have an option to view reports specifically to the campaign that you're looking for. You do also have the option to view a campaign calendar. And so we can see here on the calendar, this is the one that we just scheduled. So if you or somebody on your team is going to sit down and take the time to schedule out multiple campaigns in the future, the calendar view is a nice way to be able to see exactly when they're going out and see if that spacing looks correct for when you want your messaging to be sent to contacts. So that was an overview of the process for creating a mass email campaign. Any questions about that section before we move on to the next one? All right.
If you can you hear me, Austin?
Yep.
Connor. So with ISN that we work with, all the contacts are fed back in to this, so they should match up, correct?
Correct.
But if I'm doing it out of this, it seems a little easier than using ISN. So I've never sent campaigns through this. So I've looked at it a few times, seen what you have already set up for some of the mass ones or general ones. So, okay, good.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings up a good point too. I know ISN does give you some data around open rates, click rates, but the level of detail that you can get into by sending them here, like I mentioned, you could get as granular as seeing which specific contacts clicked on which buttons in the campaigns you're sending out. So if you're sending out this promotional email and you have a button that says click here to claim your offer, you'd be able to go back and see which specific contacts clicked on that button to claim their offer. And then you'd be able to see, okay, did they actually book an inspection with that service? If not, maybe we send a second follow-up campaign to say, hey, just a reminder, we're now 1 week into December, you've got 3 weeks left to make sure you get the service booked before the special offer ends. That level of granular detail and follow-up is not something that ISN currently has the capability of providing. So definitely a benefit here. And that also brings up a question that we've gotten many times that would be good to clarify is what if somebody unsubscribes from the campaign that you've sent here? Does that impact them receiving your emails in ISN? And regardless of the system, whether it's ISN, Spectora, Field Routes, Gorilla Desk, the answer is no. They're two totally different systems. So if they unsubscribe here, they're still going to get all your communication that you're sending out tied to the orders in the scheduling system itself.
So you have to go manually unsubscribe them. And the other one?
If you're sending all of your campaigns here and you're not doing them in ISN anymore, you wouldn't, because they would just then be getting order-related emails, which are considered transactional. And so they shouldn't be unsubscribed from those. What they should be unsubscribed from are any marketing emails. So yes, if you were to still consider sending emails in both places, it would be a good practice to then manually unsubscribe them from the ISN mass emails as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, so let's keep on going then. We're going to touch a little bit on some of the new AI features that ActiveCampaign has been rolling out. There is a lot to be done here. There's a lot that has come out within the last month and a half to 2 months, and there is a lot that's still in development. But you may have noticed when you've logged into your account that you have over here on the left-hand side this active intelligence. As I mentioned, this symbol, wherever you see it, is a heads up that there is an AI-enhanced feature or an AI-driven option that you can use. So in this case, if I click on Active Intelligence, this is going to pull up a new view that just recently released within the last few weeks. They're essentially programming intelligence within the system to be able to help you automate the creation of new follow-up sequences. So rather than having to go to the automation builder and manually add the different steps, like send an email, wait 3 days, check if they open the email. If they did open it, send a text. If they don't open it, send another email. All of that was manual previously, where you had to start with a blank canvas and drag and drop everything in. This is now helping automate the startup process for getting all of that created, as long as you can articulate to it the idea that you're trying to achieve. The other cool thing about it, though, is it helps automate and speed up the process of reporting. So as I mentioned, when you send out a mass email campaign, you're going to see a bunch of reports that are general about all the email campaigns you've sent out, as well as specific to that one email that you just sent. However, previously, there was really not a good way to pinpoint something specific. Like if you wanted to know what has been your best performing mass email, there wasn't really a good way to find that without having to go into every individual email and look at the reporting and the statistics for it. This now helps with that. You can ask it, what is my best performing email campaign? And it will go and look through all of those data metrics and be able to pull that out for you. You can even see here, compare open rate performance to industry benchmarking. So if you're concerned with the open rates of the mass emails you've been sending out, it can actually compare what your open rates are with the industry benchmark that it has. So a lot of useful features, and you can see it gives you quite a few that you can choose as starting points. But let's try this one. Let's start with build a welcome series and walk through an example of how this actually works. One thing I will say about this, as I mentioned, this just released about 3 weeks ago. They are continuously investing in latency in the sense of making it faster. So sometimes, depending on the level of involvement you're asking it to do, you may have to give it a little bit of extra time for it to be able to think through the different scenarios to analyze the account and to come back with an answer. So that is something ActiveCampaign's team is continuously investing in right now, is making this a faster performing system. So that way it feels seamless to be able to use it. But it also does tell you what it's doing at any given point in time. So you can see that it's creating a 3 email welcome automation, and it's currently working on building that out for us. As it does that, it's filling in other information here. So we can see again the overall goal of what it's creating for us. The automation ID, it's giving us a breakdown of the emails that are being sent out, what the purpose of the email is, the timing of the email, the benefits of the workflow, and then we can ask it to make modifications. So if we wanted to add 4 additional emails over a 60-day period, we can ask it to do that, and it's going to automatically add those in. If, like I mentioned a few seconds ago, if we wanted to add in conditionals, like say, if they don't open the first email after 5 days, resend them that email. But if they did open that email, move on to the next email in the sequence. So all of that, rather than you having to drag and drop steps in and do it yourself, you can just describe to it what you're trying to do, and it's going to automatically take those actions for you. So we can see over here on the right-hand side, this is what the automation canvas looks like, and it's showing us the different steps that it's built out. If we click over here, we can also see the different emails that it's created. If we click to open an email, we can then give it information as to what it should change within that email. But just like we saw with the mass email campaign, you can also just click in and edit the email directly here. Or you could click to edit in the campaign designer, which takes you back to that other view we looked at where you can drag and drop in the containers, drag and drop in the elements. So you can do all of that for these emails also. You can also review and send these emails, and you can send a test to yourself. So this sequence is created essentially. So if we were to go back out into automations, if I click on edit and automations, it's going to take us over to the automation builder itself. And we can see here are those steps that it built out. And so if we click and drag over here on the right-hand side, we see some other details about this automation. We can still come in and manually add steps or manually edit it. It's not like we have to do everything through the AI. If you are a bit more hands-on and want to have some fine-tuned controls over dragging and dropping things in yourself, or you could just pop back into the AI and ask it to make more adjustments to the automation based on what you're trying to achieve. So pretty powerful feature, as I mentioned, so that way you're not starting from a blank canvas and having to build everything from scratch. This helps at least get things started and then fine-tune from there. Coming back into it, I do want to highlight again, I know I just talked about this, we can select it. However, we don't actually have any campaigns that we've sent from this account because it is a test account, so it's not going to have anything to compare to. But I think this is one that's going to be really powerful for a lot of clients, and thinking of different variations of this, right? Not just how do my campaigns compare to industry standards, but how do my open rates compare to other home inspection businesses? How do my spam complaints compare to what people usually see with active customers, right? If you've got people that are actively working with you, but are marking your emails as spam at a higher rate than other companies and their active customers, that may be something for you to look into further to find out what is it about your emails that are getting a higher spam complaint rate. You can see here it's giving us that summary. We haven't sent any campaigns, so we just have no data for it to look at and compare against. But definitely take some time when you get a chance to come in and explore the different questions you can ask it around reporting. So that way you can get some deeper insights into how your emails are performing or even how your automations are performing. And then that could feed into adjustments that you make moving forward in order to maximize what you're getting out of the system. Any questions about the AI features? Like I said, this is still pretty new, still being developed, already pretty robust, but there are a lot more things that the team's working on that are going to be really cool features as they get released here in accounts. Cool. Let's keep on rolling then. So next thing we're going to talk about is managing contact limits. This is one that we do get questions on quite a bit, and it's always worth reinforcing how contact limits are calculated, as well as what you can do to keep contact limits within a good range, a good healthy range based on your limit in your account. So contact limits are based on the number of active contacts. An active contact is somebody who is subscribed to at least one list within your CRM. So if you have 10,000 contacts in your account, but you only have 500 actively subscribed to at least one list, that 500 is what's counting towards your contact limit, not the 10,000 that you just have in the account. So keep that in mind. If your limit is 1,000 contacts and you've got, let's say, 900 in your account and all 900 are currently active on a list, then you have about 100 left before you're going to hit your contact limit. If you have a limit of 2,500 and you have only 1,000 active, but you know you have a list of the top 3,000 realtors in your area that you want to start a prospecting sequence to, if you were to add all 3,000 to a list to send them an email, you would now be exceeding your 2,500 contact limit. And so you would then have to consider either shrinking the size of active contacts that you have at any given time, or potentially upgrading your contact limit to the next tier, which in that case would be 5,000, in order to be able to have all of those people active on at least one list at any given time. So that is the contact limit. It's based on the number of active contacts, not total contacts in the account. The nice thing about that is it's very controllable with how many contacts you currently have active, subscribed to at least one list. And it can fluctuate, right? You may have a mass email that you're sending out today, so somebody needs to be on a list for that, but you don't plan on emailing that group again for the next 6 months, so they don't need to still sit on that list if they're not going to be receiving any communications. So there's a couple of ways that we can sort and filter within the CRM in order to find those groups of contacts that are active, but that we may want to remove from that active status, so that way we free up more space before we hit our contact limit. So the way I'm going to do that first is I'm going to show how to do an advanced contact search. So coming into the contacts section, we can see in our test account here, we only have 115. I don't know that we actually have any subscribed to a list. We have 4 subscribed to a list right now. So not going to be really super realistic numbers that we're going to see here compared to your account, depending on how many contacts you have and how many are active, but the principle still applies regardless. So I'm going to do an advanced search of our contacts. And what the advanced search allows us to do is add some really specific parameters of how we're trying to find a group of people within the account. In this case, I'm trying to find people that are taking up my contact limit, but actually aren't being sent any emails or haven't been sent any emails within a certain time period. And if they are active on a list, I want to unsubscribe those people because, again, they're taking up my contact limit, but I'm not actually sending anything to them. And so the way I'm going to build that condition is I'm going to say my first filter is subscribe to a list or active, and I'm going to say at least one list. So if they're on at least one, I want them to show up in this search, which we know now if they're on at even just one, that's still counting towards your contact limit. I'm going to add an and condition, and there's a couple of ways we could do this. If you are sending out quite a bit of communication from your account, you may want to do this filter based on they haven't opened anything within a certain period of time, whether it's the last 90 days. So let's say you know you've sent this group of contacts 5 emails in the last 90 days. If they haven't opened any of those emails, that's a pretty good sign. That's a disengaged contact. And sending them a 6th through 10th email is not going to get their attention. So they can most likely be unsubscribed from that list and removed from those future communications. So in that case, I would add the filter has not opened any email in the last 90 days. And then I would hit search. Now in this case, I don't have any contacts that meet our condition because we haven't sent any emails from this test account. However, if you did have contacts that have been sent emails in the last 90 days but have not opened them, they would show up in this search here. And that would be a group that I would strongly consider unsubscribing from lists that they're on. So that way, again, they're not using up your contact count, but also so that you're not continuing to send them emails that they're not opening. One of the issues with continuing to send them emails, again, you may be hopeful and say, well, maybe if I send them just one more, they'll open it. The issue is every time you send an email and they don't open it, it's hurting your domain reputation and increasing the chances that your future emails go to spam. So it's better to play it safe and say if they've already gotten a few and they're not opening them, it's not worth continuing to send them. That way you can make sure you're protecting your domain reputation. So let's go back out to our search. Let's say in this case, we know we're not frequently emailing contacts, but our lists may still have been getting built over time. We just, Sean, to your point, you're not sending mass emails from the CRM. So you may have a bunch of contacts on a list ready to receive an email, but you're not doing it in the CRM right now. So again, if there were no plans to do it in the CRM, why have them sitting on a list using up your contact limit if they're not actually receiving anything? So in that case, I would change this filter because they haven't been sent anything. I am going to say has not been sent any channel. So it could be an email, a campaign, an SMS, a one-to-one email. You could specify if you wanted to say just any email, for example, in the last 90 days. And let's hit search. Again, because it's a test account, we're not having any data that's showing up here, but this would then return that list of contacts that has not been sent an email in the last 90 days, but is active on at least one list. And then they would be using up your contact limit. What you would do when you get that list of contacts that show up here, I'm going to go back out and I'm going to clear the filters that I just put on with the advanced search. Let's pretend these 115 are the contacts that showed up when I put those filters, right? So these are the people that I want to remove from the lists that they're on. You would click on this edit all button and you can see you're now bulk editing that group of contacts that showed up in the search result. And in this case, we want to unsubscribe them from a list. And so we have the ability of choosing the email list that we want to unsubscribe them from, and you could choose all of them if you want to. If you know they're only on one or two, you could just choose those one or two that applies to this group. Or if they could be on one of many, you can specify all of them that they should be unsubscribed from. And then you could go ahead and click on the apply button, and that's going to then go ahead and unsubscribe them. That also then removes them from counting against your contact limit. So that's how you would go in, find those groups of contacts that should not be currently active on a list, and then unsubscribe them from those lists to help keep your contact limit in control. Any questions about that process? I know with it being a test account, it was a little bit tough because the searches didn't actually return any contacts, but hopefully the concept and the process to be followed made sense.
So where did you go in for the advanced? Would you click on?
Great question. So when you click in this box to search the contacts, there's a little thing that pops up underneath for advanced search.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep. And then that brings up these conditions up here that you can specify.
I don't know who's all on here. If you want to pull up mine, unless you think there's information.
Let me take a look.
To see, get a real snapshot. I mean, it's not going to be.
Yeah. And Sean, yours is a great example. You're not quite at your limit yet. You've used up 87% of your limit. So your limit's 2,500 and you're at 2,191 active contacts. So let me get logged in here. And let me reshare my tab. Cool. So let's go into contacts. Let's go into search, advanced search. And I'm going to start with has not opened any campaign in the last 90 days. Actually, that is not, yeah, that is fine. And active on at least one list. So hit search. So you've got 2,000 contacts that are subscribed to a list but have not opened a campaign in the last 90 days. So right there, if this is a group that you don't have plans to start emailing in the future, if you were to unsubscribe them, that drops you well below getting close to your upper limit. And then you would be able to add other contacts in. If you had lists of prospects that you wanted to prospect to that you could use that contact limit for, then you could go ahead and add them as well. Yeah, this is a group to definitely consider. As I mentioned also though, if you haven't been using the system to actively send out campaigns, then obviously there's going to be a large group of people who haven't opened them because they just haven't been sent them in a certain sense. Yeah. There also could be
Well,
some agents that are in here that maybe went inactive. And so they've been sent the email campaigns from within your inactive agent sequence. And maybe they got one or two in the last 90 days that they didn't open. So that's why they're also showing on this list, because they did receive at least one email from an automation, even if it wasn't a mass email that you put together, but they haven't opened any of the emails that they have been sent.
okay.
Yep. Thanks for volunteering and letting us pull up your account to see a real world result here.
With that up there, the context says 2,000. The original was at 3,000. What's the difference?
Yep. So the original, let me clear these conditions. Yes, I am sure. Let's just go back and refresh that. 3369. So you've got 3369 total contacts. These are not active though. This is just the total size of your database. Your total active, if you click on the icon here in the bottom left and you hover over this contact limit, this shows your total active are 2188 out of your 3369 in the total database, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah. Commonly what we see with companies, home inspection companies, pest control, so we have automations that are tied to the scheduling system. So like, for example, going back to ISN, right? When an inspection gets completed in ISN, let's say there's a buyer's agent, listing agent, client on that order. Part of the integration is they get added to the CRM, their information gets updated. They also get subscribed to lists. That way they're ready to go for email communication being sent out to them. So if you've been a client with us for a little while, that means those lists have been building over time. And if you haven't actually been sending emails out to them, like the mass email campaigns, or if you don't have super robust, long sending emails out every month sequences, those lists are continuing to build regardless. So that's why we see you have 2188 active. And out of that 2188, the other number was like about 2,000 haven't opened an email in the last 90 days. It could just be based on the frequency of emails that are being sent out to them and with the amount of time that you've been a client that those lists have continued to build without mass email campaigns being sent out on a frequent basis.
So what would you recommend? Trying to do a few more emails? Once you get in there, since I haven't been working it?
Yeah, I would certainly recommend start getting into the mass emails. I would say for you and for any client, couple of things. If you have contacts that have been subscribed for a while, we may want to consider doing a scrub of the email list before you start sending out mass emails to them. We've got some clients that we've been working with for 4, 5, 6 years on the CRM. So an inspection from 5 years ago, a client from 5 years ago, there's not a guarantee that their email address is still even good. And so if you try to send out a mass email campaign to a bunch of old contacts and you get a high bounce rate, that could potentially hurt your domain reputation with future sends. So what you could consider doing instead is one of the data points that we pull over is the inspection date. So you may say you want to start sending out mass emails only to those who've had an inspection within the last year, because there's a much greater chance that those email addresses are still good and usable. Right. But if you want to go older than a year, then we may need to look at cleaning up that list to make sure you're not going to get a high bounce rate.
Yeah, that's what I was in my mind going, well, they may not even be with that brokerage anymore. Emails change.
Exactly.
I've seen a lot more of them going to one that they're carrying with them everywhere instead of, the brokerage email, because they move. Yes. They move a lot, So yep. Yeah, so okay, so let's scrub it. That's good information. So I was worried, like, we're looking there going one's from 21, like, holy, is this guy even a realtor anymore? Or, even in this state, he could have moved out,
Exactly. Yeah, agents are definitely, they move email addresses more than clients. I feel like clients, you're probably a bit safer to go a little bit further back, but agents, if it's a branded email address, certainly would be a bit more of a concern potentially. I will say it's not, unless you're emailing a super huge list or really a list of unknown contacts, like sending out one email and having a slightly higher bounce rate is not going to kill your reputation. It's not going to kill the account. But it's just if you do it consistently over time, or if it is extremely high. Like if you were to purchase a list of agents and you just decided to start mass emailing them and you had like a 10% bounce rate on that purchased list, that's most likely going to throw up a red flag in the account to say this is a spammy sender, or they're sending to people that did not agree to get emails, right? Everybody in the account was an agent or a client on a past order, so they know your company, they've worked with you. That's why it's okay to send to them. So yeah, definitely something to be mindful of as well.
Sounds like a credit reporting agency. Jeez.
Hopefully not as bad as
Fire,
that.
you get dinged.
Yeah, hopefully not as bad as that. Awesome. Okay, so that covers managing contact limits. I'll flip back over to our demo account here. At this point, I know we've got about 17 minutes left. We did want to leave some time for more Q&A or more troubleshooting if there's anything account specific that you want us to go into. Otherwise, we do have a couple of other things that we can touch on with just some fundamentals about understanding how the CRM works, some of the terminology within the CRM. But before we start jumping into those things, we can open it up for any other questions or troubleshooting.
I'm pretty good.
All right. Let's go ahead and start talking about some other things then here. So one of the things that we get questions on every now and then is what are the differences between how contacts are grouped within the CRM? Because there are a few different ways that they can be grouped. They can be grouped in a list. They can be grouped based on tag. They can be included in a segment. So just to sort of explain a little bit the differences between those three things, as well as how they can be used or best practices, we can start with lists because we've already talked about them quite a bit. So lists are going to be for your active contacts, who you are sending emails to or who you plan to send emails to. And they have to be subscribed, as I mentioned, to at least one list in order to receive emails. It is not best practice to try and use a list as just a way to group contacts together if you don't actually plan on sending anything to them, because then you're using up your contact limit for a bunch of people that you're just trying to get a visual group on who they are. Right? So really lists should just be reserved for those that you want to actively send emails to. You can see we do have a few lists that we've created here in our test account. For our client accounts that we set up, we also include a few different variations of lists. One of the other recommendations is try not to go super overboard with creating new lists, just because it can get a bit confusing to know if you have like 50, which contact is subscribed to which list. Are they on 40 of those 50 lists? Are they on 5 or only 1? So it's a better idea if the whole goal for your account is for grouping, to keep lists concise for either a hierarchical like group of contacts or a purpose for that list. So in this case, we would have buyer's agents, we would have listing agents, but we may also want a newsletter list, which is a purposeful list that could have a mix of buyer's agents and listing agents on it, right? So just think that through when you're creating your lists. Again, try not to go overboard, try to make them a bit more higher level, and don't think of them as just a way to group contacts together, because that's a very quick way to eat up your contact limit if you have people on here that you're not actually planning on reaching out to. One thing that could be better for that in terms of grouping would be using tags. So tags are ways to group contacts together. Tags are completely separate from lists, so tags don't count towards any contact limit. You can have an unlimited number of tags. A contact can theoretically have an unlimited number of tags applied to them. But tags are another good way to group people together. So in this case, you can see one of the tags we created at one point is called new. It's showing us that we have 4 contacts that have this tag applied. If I click on that, it's going to open those 4 contacts that have that tag attributed to them. So if your goal is to be able to know how many buyer's agents you have in the account total without having all buyer's agents subscribed to a list, you would then use a tag. And that tag is the way that you could group them as like total buyer's agents. One way you could group them, there's a couple of ways, but that's one way that you could group them. The other purpose of tags is tags are very useful for automations. So you can use tags as a filter condition. So you could say if a contact has this tag, then you want a certain action to happen. You can also have a tag be a trigger for an automated workflow. So if a contact has the tag applied to them, that is the trigger for them to go into an automation to then go through the series of steps that you build out. So tags are one way that you can group contacts together. Another way that you can group contacts together are segments. And we looked at this a little bit when we did our email that we created, our mass email campaign. So let's say we want to build a segment, and we're going to call this segment inactive agents. So I don't want a separate list for inactive agents because these are still buyer's agents. They've just gone inactive, right? So why have a separate list for them just to be able to group them together? You could make a tag for inactive agents, but you could also create a segment. And in a segment, it looks similar to what we saw with the advanced contact search, where you specify the conditions for a contact to be in this segment. So let's think about inactive agents. What is the benefit of doing it as a segment versus a tag? When you apply a tag, the tag stays on the contact until it's removed, whether you manually remove it or whether you have an automation remove it. So when we think about inactive agents, if they go inactive, that's great. We apply a tag to them. They're now grouped as an inactive agent. But what if they end up working with you again? You either need to have a step in an automation to remove that tag, or you need to go in and manually remove that tag. So that's the only thing about tags is when they get applied, they stick until something removes it from that contact, whether it's an automation or it's manual. The nice thing about a segment is dynamic. So a contact is only in a segment when they meet the conditions of that segment. So if this contact is inactive at this point in time, they will be included in this inactive segment. If they end up working with you again, they would automatically be removed from this inactive segment. And so it's a bit more dynamic, as I mentioned. And it also makes it a little bit easier to know that you're targeting the right group of contacts without having the manual actions that are involved in tags. So in this case, we know an inactive agent for our company. We're going to say most recent inspection as buyer's agent is before, I'm going to say 3 months ago. So if their last inspection with us as a buyer's agent is before 3 months ago, that's 90 days ago, they are now considered inactive for our company in this example. So we'll go ahead and click on save. Now we can see we have one contact who meets this segment condition, who is considered inactive based on their last inspection date as a buyer's agent. We can also see it gives us a very clear differentiation between how many of these contacts that meet the segment are active, meaning they're subscribed to at least one list, and how many are total. So they could be in our database, but not subscribed to a list. They still meet the segment conditions though, because of what we specified. And as I mentioned, this will dynamically update. So if I come back into active contacts here, let's see who this one contact is that meets this condition. All right, so it's Aaron. Aaron hasn't worked with us recently. If I open up his buyer's agent data, we can see it's showing his last inspection is 2023. So I'm going to update this. And I'm going to say now that his last inspection was November 7th. And let's hit save changes. So if I go back into our segments, and we refresh, should be removing him. I'm not sure why it's still showing him there. And I just realized somebody should have called me out. I am sharing other tabs here that you are not seeing. So that is not very helpful. So I'm going to back up a step. And I'm going to create a new segment because you did not see this process, right? Of creating the segment?
Correct.
Okay. We saw you create the segment. We didn't see you update Aaron's contact.
Got it. Okay. All right, let me get that reopened here on my end. think my Wi-Fi connection is starting to not like me too much. Of course, technology always doesn't want to agree with you when you are trying to show something. Okay, I'll just talk it through since the page is not wanting to update on my end. So it shows the one contact that is active, and that was Aaron on his profile. I manually went to his profile, changed the most recent inspection date as a buyer's agent to November 7th, refresh, and then once refreshing, it would then show that there are now 0 contacts that meet that segment condition because now Aaron is no longer considered an inactive agent. Where that becomes really nice, kind of like we talked about with the mass email campaign that we put together at the beginning of this call, if you have a mass email that you want to send out to your inactive agents, you could always rely on that segment being the up-to-date list of inactive agents. So you don't have to worry about doing custom contact searches. You don't have to worry about, do you have people tagged as an active agent who maybe aren't actually inactive? That segment is going to be the most reliable, dynamic way to know when contacts meet certain specifications. So another example would be, let's say if a client, their last order was over a certain dollar amount. And so you want to consider that like a luxury client or a VIP client. You could create a segment that says if it's a home inspection company, most recent inspection fee, or if it's a pest control company, service package fee is greater than, let's say, $1,000, then those clients are now entered into that segment for luxury or VIP. And so that'll always, again, stay refreshed and up to date based on the conditions you specified and based on the data that's coming through from your scheduling system. So definitely consider looking into segments in your account as well. But that is a little bit about the difference between lists, tags, and segments. Any questions about any of those three?
No.
All right. Let's see if I can get this reloaded so I can show one more thing here before we enter our wrap-up session. All right, so let me reshare my tab. So another question we get sometimes is, how can we see where a contact currently is in an automation? So if you've got a really long workflow, you've got a contact entered into it, how can we see where they actually are at any given point in time? So I'm going to turn on this 3 email welcome sequence that we had AI create for us. Cool, so that is now active. And I'm going to go in and pick a random contact here. Actually, no, we'll pick on Aaron. We will add Aaron to it. You can manually add contacts to automations by going to the contact profile, coming down into automations, and you can see this button here that says add. So we can add him to that 3 email welcome sequence. And then if you hover over an automation, it'll tell you when they've entered the automation, when they've completed the automation, and what percentage of completion they are within that automation. So in this case, we can see Aaron's 20% complete with this 3 email welcome sequence. If you click on it, you can end the automation. So let's say you've got a prospect that's in a prospecting sequence and they called you up after the first of 7 emails that you have set up and said, please don't send me another email. You could easily come to their profile and hit end. So that way it kicks them out of the rest of that sequence and they're not going to get that further communication from you. But if we click on view, this is going to take us over into a somewhat familiar view of the automation. But in this case, we're not editing it. We're just looking at where this contact is. So we can see here, it's showing us how the contact entered. In this case, they entered manually because I went to Aaron's profile and manually entered him into the automation. We can see if they were sent an email. And in this case, he completed this send email block. We can see the exact date and time. If they skip a block for whatever reason, it's also going to show us that here. So if they either didn't meet a condition, if they are not active on a list, it'll show that they skipped that email step because they're not active on a list to be able to receive that email. And then we can see where they currently are. So right now, Aaron is sitting in this wait for 2 days step, and we can see when he entered this step. You can also manually push them forward. So we could click on skip this action, and it'll push him past that 2-day wait step, and it'll send the next email and then put him in the next wait step. And we can see here it says skipped. We can see here it sent the second email, and now he's in this 4-day wait step. So that's how you can view where a contact is in an automation by going to their profile, clicking on the automation name, clicking view, and then you can also influence some of the actions that they are reaching within this automation if you want to push them forward. Cool. All right, so last couple of things. We are wrapping up here. We've got only a couple minutes left in our call time. So one thing I do want to show, let me get it pulled up. So we do have our help center, which is help.wolfpackadvising.com. We have some help articles for the different services we offer. If you come into CRM, we do have some help articles related to CRM, as well as some of the different sequences that we have pre-built out within the accounts that we set up. However, this is not a super robust help center, just because, as we know, the CRM that we build everything off of is ActiveCampaign. And ActiveCampaign has a robust help center themselves that we initially tried to keep up with, but they were just producing so many new help articles that it made more sense to just say, let them be the experts in the help section, and we just refer back to the articles that they are publishing. So if you go to activecampaign.com and we go into articles, we'll see them there. I know there is also the Help Center. So they have the blog here, so we can read a bunch of information. A lot of this is just general good marketing information, good CRM information, ways that you can use the account further. But then we can see here we have the help docs, and this is very robust, breaking down basically everything about ActiveCampaign and the features that it has. So if you wanted to read more about those mass email campaigns, you could come into email marketing, and then you can see Build and Send Campaigns has 62 articles just about that one topic. So breaking down every single feature with building a mass email, what to look out for, nuances about the process. So very robust help center here with basically every part of the system. So definitely recommend bookmarking this tab. But if you also within your account go to chat our team, it'll also pull up a link to ActiveCampaign's help articles there. So that way you always have that link available to you when you're within your account too. Awesome. Olivia, I know last thing on here is details about future office hours. Do you know, do we already have those published and ready to go, or is that something we'll be sending a future follow-up email about?
I think we'll be sending the finalized date in a future follow-up, but it will be occurring quarterly.
Okay, perfect. Yes, this is going to be a quarterly office hours call, so we will have an agenda set up for the next one. We're, as Olivia mentioned, finalizing the date. We'll have information sent out for everybody about when that call is, as well as the calendar event, just like we did with this call too. So awesome. We are pretty much right over time. So thank you for joining. We'll have this recording processed and sent out so that way it can be watched, referred to. But as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to our team, and hope to see everybody on the next call.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. All right. Bye.
Bye. All right, so let's stop the recording.